Fine, thanks.
Huh?
Overload. Permanently overload.
Yeah.
No pause.
Same kind of going on over here.
Seems to be that that's a sort of destiny for architects.
Hey, I'm waiting for
Jean-Marc.
Jean-Marc to join because I think he has the
Oh, Andreas is here.
agenda.
Hello, Andreas.
Hello. Hello, nice to meet you.
Hey.
Ah, next one. Yatian. There he is. Bonjour, bonjour.
Hi, guys.
Hello. Hey, what's up, Jean-Marc?
How are you?
Hello.
Good.
Not too early this time? A bit
No.
bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also in Nashville, so I'm like 2 hours ahead of
Okay,
work.
so you're closer.
Yeah, which is better.
To Andrea. Okay. So we'll call you Sanzo. That will be easier. We'll give you the
I've
mic to
seen
go.
that you pushed hardly today. Hundreds of commits.
Let me put that in.
I think Andrea, I know from the pyRevit forum. It could be, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, shall we go?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, Dozy Map is sending something.
Esan, you're appearing a second time. Or is that a second Esan?
Oh.
My Zoom crashed. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I can tell. I see your face twice. Or do you have a twin?
Well, the other one shouldn't be there. I guess Zoom hasn't figured out them I've crashed
Yeah.
yet.
That's funny.
They'll probably go away.
It's an advantage, so you can work as twice as fast.
It would be great if that would happen.
Yeah, instead of two hands, you have two heads, two brains.
Two brains,
Perfect.
yeah, 2 brains, 4 hands, that would be great. Okay, Jean-Marc, how many people do you think we expect?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen at least so that we have like some kind of table of content for today.
Okay.
So that's what I wrote from last time and from some of the discussion we had during the past weeks. One thing I wanted to add to this list was the fact that Sanzo removed the DLL and we pushed the thing. It seems to work fine.
Okay.
So you can see it in one of the last PRs. You'll be able to see that he removed it from the develop branch. And it looks good to me. So I've tried it this morning. I tried the installer as well, and everything looked fine. So that's one big thing. Well, I don't know, big. Figuring out which one to remove and which one to leave.
Yes, basically I saw that the engines has to be left alone well, we could also remove the DLLs of the Python engines, but yeah, since the other files in that subfolders needs to stay there, I simply removed all the DLLs and exe from the bin directory, and it's yeah, as you can see in the gitignore file, I made sure that the other files are still in the repository. But if I hope if you add another file in that directory, in the bin directory, it shouldn't appear in the commit messages, in the commit in the GitHub.
Okay, so I'm looking at the PR and I see that the icons have been removed too. How is the installer building this without these?
Some of the icons were copied over by the .NET build, so it's taken from the
I see.
solution directory and then copied over.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's the installer is building everything, huh?
The only files that needed to be there are the ones that are listed from line 16 to
Yeah,
line
these ones.
20. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. As long as the installer can, because I can see, we got the build installer. As long as the installer can see and pull all the files that it needed to be there. So we have to actually test this on the install. I can take a look at this, but basically, let me look at the installer configuration files. Because it would pull everything that inside of bin directory, I think. Let's see, pyRevit .iss, for example.
For me, on my side, I checked the 2 installs I got of pyRevit with the web installer, and I checked inside the bin directory if there was anything different, and everything was
Okay.
there.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of files that I'm a little worried about, which I have to test. Like, for example, pyRevit /toast. That file it's not part of the build process, as far as I can remember. So that was just the binary that was in the bin directory. So we have to make sure that it is included in the installer. So I'll test one of the installers to make sure it has all the files that it's supposed to have, the new installers for the web.
Okay.
Some other ones like the Rhino 3D MIO, like the installer is building, but basically the installer is pointing to grab everything that's available in the bin directory. So it's not pointing specifically to files. So the build CI/CD build, it's still passing, but the installer might miss some of these DLLs, like Rhino 3D MIO, that DLL, as far as I can remember, is not part of the build of any other projects that we build. Those are a bunch of DLLs that were just available in the bin directory. But I'll take a look at this and make sure that they exist and reverted if it needs to be there. Okay.
They figure in my install using the whip installer. I have the
Yeah,
Rhino
I'm
one.
gonna take a look at the normal installer and the whip installer and compare and see which files are missing, and then just fix those.
Cool. So that was one thing. The big topics, I might leave it for the end, maybe. So this is done. Yeah, there was that one question. That's something I saw that Cyril Vescher brought back from the dead again, and another guy. It was an error supposedly due to the known enumerator that changed between the engines. And that's one thing.
Python 3, none in Python 3 is a keyword. So all the enumerations that have none as a value, the Python 3 will throw a syntax error. I think in IronPython 3 you have to add an underscore at the end or something like that. I have modified this in Rhino so we can type none in caps, and it would work instead of none, as in like, you know, normal none. So we can do a modification like that, but I have to test IronPython 3 to see.
But there was already a modification for that a while back, like maybe 6 or 8 months ago.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be taking care of everything. And here, what Cyril was suggesting was to just basically remove all the older IronPython engines to get things a bit cleaner, maybe. And that kind of made sense to me, but I think it's not the whole point is not only fixing the known member, obviously, but would be to be able to remove all the irritating stuff between all the engines. For example, the full frame stuff that is happening whenever you're using, I think it's the request module in IronPython that doesn't work properly yet. Like if you're in 277 engine and you go to 2711, you don't, in 2711 you're clear of all these errors, but in previous version you're not. So we get a couple of tickets attached to that in relation to that same issue.
So I think like we should make these changes, these more radical changes, as I will call them, like breaking changes, in the next major version of pyRevit.
Yeah.
That we're gonna do for .NET Framework and stuff like that. I really don't want to break anybody's existing workflows based on the old engines and whatnot, because I'm assuming like most single users don't switch between engines. If they got an engine that's working with a, you know, with whatever packages and all that kind of stuff that they want, they just keep using that.
Or maybe what we could do is just switch to the proper latest engine from the installer, because right now it's going to 2.77 by default.
Okay.
So when I do like the pyRevit command stuff, and
We can do that. We can switch the default to 2.7.12, which is the latest IronPython 2.
Actually, I don't know where it's happening in the repo and in the code where you set that up.
Yeah, I have to take a look. I think the pyRevit file has a entry on which one is the default. pyRevit file 277.
Yeah, that's 2.7.11 actually. It's supposed to be that one, but whenever you install from the installer, it's not.
Yeah, so I put the link in the chat if you want to open that. Yeah, oh yeah, there you go. You're there. Yeah. 2.7.11 should be the default, but you say if you install it.
I installed this morning the whip installer and it was going back to 2.77.
Okay. Is it because do you have a clean configuration file when installed? Because I think this setting is stored in the config. So if you have a configuration file already with 2.7.7, it's just gonna load that.
Let me check on my side, but I don't know if someone wants to check the whip installer, the latest one, and remove the config file from their computer. Maybe that would be faster.
I can do that. What I'm checking for the bin directory, the same.
I'm gonna check on my side as well.
Update. Yeah, there should be like an engine version or something. What if it's not there? It means that it is the default. CPython engine. Okay. I'll test that right now after the meeting when I test for the installer to make sure that the DLLs are there.
Yeah, I think there's no config for the default engine in the config file. It should be under core, right? I don't
What is
see.
it for? Yeah, it should be
Okay.
under the core settings. If it's not there, it means that it's using the default. Then I have to go find where the default is stored. Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that is under the pyRevit config.ini would be the CPython engine. There's
Yeah.
nothing else.
Okay, let me check this. Change default.
Just for information, there's
Well,
2.7.12 on IronPython website as well.
Yeah.
This last version.
2.7.12.
Yeah, that's what Serial proposed actually.
Yeah, I gotta put that in, which is fairly, that's an easy test to do. I can do that very quickly. I'll put this on my notes to make sure that 2.7.12 is included, and that's the default for the next version.
Yeah. And can you remind me why the 2.7.11 was suffixed by PR?
Because that's a specific pyRevit compile. So it's
Okay.
not a ironpython.dll, it's pyRevit.ironpython.dll to make
Okay.
sure it doesn't have any conflicts with everybody else's IronPython.
Okay. So like you did the strong naming. Okay.
Yeah, that's the PR extension for that.
Okay, makes sense. So that was one thing, and maybe one of the main topic, because some of the people in the forum, I don't know if Alexander actually is there, was mentioning that, but he told me maybe he would look at the recording. He was asking about the whole thing around the .NET, and he wanted to understand a bit more what would happen from there.
Yeah, so that's the biggest question, and I kind of wanted to get your guys' idea on this. This kind of ties into the conversation about the next major version of pyRevit. And I think it is a good idea to change pyRevit to version 5 with this change, but that would create a bunch of work. What I was thinking of doing is that pyRevit 5 would be a sort of like a slower upgrade of pyRevit 4 instead of a complete new one from scratch. So I'll take the pyRevit 4, and I would grab all the C# code that is being compiled at runtime and change those into a pre-compiled static assembly that ships with pyRevit. And it has one IronPython 2, one IronPython 3, and the latest Python net engines. It would have these three. We don't have any extra thing, and I have to make sure that it loads both for .NET Framework and .NET Core. But one of the things we can do is that we can completely drop .NET Framework. I'm totally okay with that. As long as we make sure that pyRevit 5 and pyRevit 4, they can run everybody's extensions. So there's no change to the extension API, all that kind of stuff is still the same. pyRevit 5 would be a major upgrade of the pyRevit runtime. I'll drag all the C# code that we have, put it in the static assembly, pre-compiled during the build, add it to the installer, and not have any C# that is being compiled at runtime.
Do you think that should be a different project in itself?
Well,
in terms of repo?
No, it would be pyRevit 4 that would the existing pyRevit that we have changing into pyRevit 5. I don't have any problems with that, but that means that sort of like, after that process, we won't be able to publish any new pyRevit 4 versions.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
So that means that everybody that is on the latest pyRevit 4 can only be using pyRevit 5 if they are upgrading to the latest Revit.
Meaning which Revit?
Revit 2025, which is .NET Core.
So that would be pyRevit 5 from Revit 2025 on.
on,
and
yeah.
the rest would be pyRevit 4. But there wouldn't be any conflict between the two, having these two infrastructure on different Revit. You would still get to have all the pyRevit .master dash master on the user app data thing.
Yeah.
So you
Well, so if you do pre-compile assembly, we have to put a pyRevit in a different default install folder.
Yeah.
So pyRevit file would get a different one, because if you do pre-compiled assemblies, it would have to be bound to different Revit APIs. And that means that kind of we might end up having different DLLs in there, depending on which version of Revit you're loading. So the pyRevit runtime would get a bunch of folders, like maybe 2020, 2022, that kind of stuff, or like 2025 and onwards, something like that. There would be a little bit of an adjustment to how the pyRevit folder structure would be as far as the DLL goes. Like the bin directory would have a bunch of other folders in it for Revit, specific Revit versions. Or we can continue doing the same, continue compiling the C# at runtime. I've already modified this like 2 years ago. So the compiler in pyRevit uses Roslyn, which is newer. So we don't have a whole lot of troubles getting it to run on .NET, because it's using the most recent C# compiler. But we just have to make sure that everything is, everything's
working.
Actually, yeah. Which means that I have to grab the part of the challenge is that for .NET Core, I have to grab a different IronPython DLL. Like the same engine is not going to work. IronPython for .NET Core is a different DLL. So there will be some changes to which one of these engines we want to use and whatnot.
So you got the grand master plan, but how do you plan on splitting the work so that it's not a one-man show?
He's saying that he can create solutions in C#. So here, let me share a screen really quick. What if you don't mind? Oh, okay. Let me do.
Oh, sorry, I just unshare.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Let me share a screen really quick. So in the directory structure of pyRevit, one of the things that we have to do, so we got these devs, right? A bunch of these are static, like the pyRevit labs and pyRevit loaders and all of those kind of stuff. They get statically compiled and they're added during the build, and they would be added to the installer. This one, pyRevit labs.pyrevit.runtime, only has the CS projects in here, so I can work on these files. But the actual C# files are under pyRevit lib, pyRevit runtime. The C# are here. And the original reason for this was that I wanted to be able to make changes to these C# and just reload pyRevit in place and get that DLL loaded in Revit. We don't really specifically need that anymore. So all of this can turn into a actual static assembly and be compiled during the build. So they can all move inside of this, be compiled during the build, and get loaded during the runtime. So this pyRevit lib, pyRevit runtime init file here, this used to build all these C# files during the runtime. This can only just reference the DLL from now on. It doesn't really have to build anything anymore, which dramatically simplifies this process. This would make stuff a little simpler.
Would that make pyRevit load faster, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. On the first one, it will load faster because it doesn't really need to compile these DLLs anymore. The only other thing for pyRevit to do is scanning the extensions, and that would make it, slightly. That's the only slow thing that it would have at that point. Now, here's the other thing. What I wanted to do for pyRevit 5 was to write the extension scanner in .NET, so it would be faster. looking at the directories, all that kind of stuff, finding
Yeah.
the exception, stuff like that. That would be ideal, but that's one of the things that we can do in the next revision of 5. So I feel like if we front load the .NET framework changes, all that kind of stuff, do that for the first release of pyRevit 5. Make sure it works with Revit 2025. Then we can incrementally change the architecture of some of these core components and make them simpler, bring them to C# as much as we can. So the runtime is basically just a couple of DLLs. And it would load whatever engine that the users want and run the Python codes from there. Something like that.
That's it.
The
That's simple.
Yeah, the only question is that when do we want to go for this release? I don't know when does Revit 2025 is coming out. I know the preview is out. I just installed it a couple of
It's
days.
usually April, first week of April on the US market, and the rest would be second week of April.
Okay, first week of April.
And
So-
the first dot version would come up usually in June, when they release the first fixes for all the crap they did.
yeah. Okay, so realistically, we have until June
yeah,
to have a working version of pyRevit 5 out.
yeah, June is reasonable.
Okay.
Because April, usually people don't install the first version unless the guys like you, me, and we test things out, but that's it. The rest of the people usually use the first dot version.
Okay, I don't have pyRevit here. Okay. Okay, let's okay, let me get started on this. We'll do another meeting in March.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll have something ready by then. And then after that, if everybody else wants to get involved in sort of like helping me out with the task, I feel like at that point I'll have a better understanding of how much work do we want to do.
Yeah.
That would be super great.
And if you can break it down to small tasks so that
Yeah.
people that with no complete knowledge of C# or anything or infrastructure of this component would, I mean, I'm not a C# guy, so but I can do work anyway.
I am C# guy.
We'll bring the tasks into the next meeting agenda. We'll bring those into the next meeting agenda so we can figure out, and everybody can like pick up something during the
Maybe
next.
we can create issues for that specifically
Yeah,
and
we could
tag
probably
them.
like create an issue for that with some
Might
tasks
be
in
easier.
there.
Unless you want
assign
to
it to
use a
people.
project thing of GitHub as well, that could do.
Yeah, we could do that. I think everything else is fairly okay and clean. This is the one that needs the most cleanup. Because there's a lot of like sketchy stuff happening there. The build framework, I'm pretty happy with those. If you guys have any other major pains in here,
I mean,
let's-
the loading time is quite extensive whenever you're using different extension. That's the most, the worst thing I can notice on my side. I'm using lots of different extension and trying things out all the time. So I kind of wait for Revit to load just because it's scanning everything in the background. I think we lost the sun, right?
hey.
We
Am I
got
back?
you. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's officially start this. pyRevit 5. Okay, .NET. Let's do pyRevit .NET runtime. Runtime no longer to compile at Revit launch. Support for .NET Core. And then faster extension parsing, which is probably .NET code, .NET extension. And I've already started a project for this because I want to use it for a project with Rhino as well. So we would have a pyRhino kind of situation that does the same thing as pyRevit over Rhino. And then purge old Iron Python engines.
Maybe extension parser library create separately on pyRevit.
Yeah, I've called this tentatively, I've called it the bundler library. So that would be probably a separate DLL that other people can use to do other stuff with.
To use как там? Окей.
Sorry, I didn't.
Or you can write the ZMap if you want. I know
Yeah.
that you might want to use a translator or anything. So
Okay, purge all Iron Python engines. What else do we want to do? Is everybody comfortable dropping support for .NET Framework Revits in 5?
what would be the cons?
Me, not at all. I'm sorry. I support the project, but I don't think I'm able to make any programming work on in that.
Well, okay. So, but the question is, if we drop support for .NET Framework, pyRevit 5 will only work from Revit 2025 and onwards. Everybody else that decides to stay on an older version of Revit have to stay with pyRevit 4.
I wouldn't mind so far. I mean, they would have a pretty decent experience from what we have already today. It would be still be able to use their own extension.
No,
So
it's
I don't know
fun.
if there are some things that we cannot do by dropping this, like using some external tools or connecting it to Revit.
Yeah, let me look into this. Okay, I'll try to
I write text in the chat.
keep compatibility with NetFX. Maybe compile pyRevit to net standard 2. So if I compile it to net standard 2, it would be loadable in both of them. And I probably end up with a smaller set of DLLs that are different between the two runtimes.
You can create 2 folders for net core and net framework,
Yeah,
and then compile to framework to core.
yeah, that's what we do with Rhino. It just has to be the runtime has to be selective as where it's loading DLLs from. Which we kind of have to do if you're compiling all of this for different versions of Revit. Okay, I kind of feel more comfortable if you do have support for .NET FX, .NET Framework, because that way people can have the same pyRevit installation that works for the older Revits too.
Yes, I can confirm that here at my company, we still use Revit 2021. So it would be good to have the newer pyRevit compatible also with the old
Okay.
versions of Revit.
My company will be use 2026 and 2024, and I need compatibility.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, in other words said as well, all the rules BIM managers learn first is never upgrade a Revit meanwhile a big project. And I think there are a lot of people out there who work on big projects invoking pyRevit. So at my company, we have Revit 21, 23, and 24 on projects, depending. And as it's such a bunch of things to do to upgrade the project, you're never sure that you will not lose information. The compatibility issue is something which may be also how to say alter the popularity of pyRevit. If there are major problems of installation, then maybe people will go away from it. So I think one has to be careful to have at least the functionality of pyRevit in until Revit 2024, which still goes on. And then in some years, it will be no issue at all. But
Okay.
one has to be careful about that. Little bit like
I think we should follow Autodesk that offers the licenses for the last 4 versions, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we at least try to make pyRevit compatible with the last 4 versions.
Yeah, but I mean, we can try, but there's also, it's always the same inconvenience for everybody. I use 2017 sometimes because of one specific project and one specific client. And yes, I don't have all the tools, and I tell my clients, I don't have all the tools to do my job. Would you care to upgrade that? And at the end of the day, that's their problem. We spend more time on the project, they waste money, or we just upgrade. So, I mean, end of the day, I wouldn't mind so much if it was only 2 or 3 or 4 version backward tops. And but having only support for 2025 would probably be a no-go for many people, or having 2 different installers as well would be an issue probably.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking I mean, pyRevit 5 will have the same bin directory, but we'll separate the DLLs into NetFX and NetCore. And then pyRevit CLI would still be the same. It's going to be just a .NET Core application. Nobody really cares about which .NET this is using. And then we'll just have to modify some of these code in Python that we have to use some of this. So we'll fix that one. Well, I think we're good with providing support for .NET Core, keeping the .NET FX. I think we all agree on that. And then faster extension parsing. These 2 are the most time-consuming things when pyRevit loads. So I guess these two are kind of both performance related. I don't know if you have any. There's nothing else that pyRevit does that at runtime that slows it down. The configuration file is fairly simple, so that's not a huge thing there.
I mean, one of the things that makes it slow is the extensive amount of files, actually. That's probably one of the main thing, because whenever you're using all these extensions, every extension has 2 icons, 1 Bordeaux file, 1 script, etc. inside many different folders. So at the end of the day, that kind of packed the whole thing, even though it's simpler to edit and everything. I mean, I'm not arguing against it, but I'm just saying that in terms of performance, that's one of the things that makes it so much slower. And also, whenever you're searching through it, that makes the whole thing complicated. But
yeah, that's all the reasons that I wanted to do this faster extension parsing. Because if I run it redundant, I'm more comfortable doing it multi-threading over there. Like each extension will be parsed on its own thread, like that kind of stuff. Make it a little faster. I only have to make sure that the core pyRevit tools are loaded before Revit's UI show up. So I got those, and then all the other extensions can populate as a person has.
Yeah, and if you can populate on the fly as well, that makes the whole thing easier. But I mean, we don't need to see the extension until you actually open the file in Revit. Most of the time, there's a few extensions that requires some Revit doc context or not, but it just wouldn't make sense to me to focus too much on the extra extension to pyRevit, but bringing the main tools first makes more sense.
Okay, so I guess this loosely kind of shows the structure of the tasks that we're gonna have. One major one would be this one. So I'm gonna move that one over, which is changing pyRevit to support NetCore and a different bin directory structure that makes sure it loads in both of them. The other one is changing all those .NET I guess you can do this as part of the same 2 tasks. So that's one kind of. The first 2 are one big task. And then we have extension parsing and purging of the old IronPython engines. So if somebody wants to get started on the purging of the engines before the next meeting, that would be one. We can get rid of everything except for 2.7.12.
I think need to add and create new project structure for C# and update to Netcore solution project. When added эти,
Okay, do you want to do that?
yep, I think I can. Yep,
Okay.
yep. Mhm.
Okay, so if you want to get it started on it, that's fine. I feel like you guys can get it started on it faster than I can. So maybe this puts us a little ahead.
Maybe we should talk a bit about organization in terms of the repo as well. I mean, right now we still have to get things going with all the issues and the PR at the same time for the existing version, and you don't want to have like these the 2 things overlapping too much, maybe. So I would suggest to have like a develop branch specific for pyRevit 5, maybe, and see if we want
Wait,
to
there's some
Yeah,
comment.
split the
we
work
needed-
and have a CI/CD that is kicking also specifically for that.
Yeah, we need to
Would-
keep the develop branches for pyRevit 4 and 5 separate from each other. I'm thinking like after pyRevit 5 is out, we'll focus all the work on pyRevit 5, obviously. But if in some, very specific case, we need to make some adjustments to 4, we can publish from that develop branch and create a different main for pyRevit 4. The original main will turn into, this is what we do for Rhino as well. Let me edit this. So we need a main 4, which is for pyRevit 4 main and develop for pyRevit 4.
Wait a second,
And we-
Ethan, look to the comment, Dosi map, those are tasks.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was it?
There's some ads in the comments by Dosi map. He had a
Oh,
task.
in the chats. I see.
Yeah.
The problem is the performance of searching for panels and tabs. There's a search inside the list, and there's no cache. Add task update C# projects. Okay, so there is a piece that creates all the UI in pyRevit. I'm gonna add that one as performance too. Do rewrite UI builder in .NET so it is faster. Because there's a Python module that builds all the UI right now. And that might be fairly, so all of IronPython is pretty good, but still it might be pretty slow doing the UI work. So we can rewrite that in C#. We'll see how much of this we can do for the first release of pyRevit. We might have to schedule these for after the first release and get it to become faster and faster as we do the next minor releases.
When you wrote the main 4 develop 4 branches, that would imply to have 2 CI/CD different for one and the other, right?
Yeah, so the config, we'll just modify the config file. That basically every time you push to develop -4, it would build for develop -4. And when we merge to main 4, it would release a 4 version. which I don't think, we'll be doing after pyRevit 5, maybe like, once or twice for very specific crashes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the current development main would be pyRevit 5.
And would you like to have that implemented like right away, or you want to wait a bit?
No, so if you're doing any work, this is the first thing that I have to do. Let me actually move that upwards. I think I can do this very quickly today.
Yeah.
So we do have separate branches.
I have another question. When I looked at all the comments on GitHub, there's this Sentinel-1 issue. Is there a possibility to include this or to get rid of that? Because that's half of the messages you receive when following the GitHub repo and all the issues going on.
I think I've been working a bit with the people from Sentinel-1 on it. When I say working, it's like working with Autodesk from afar. So it didn't go anywhere. I got a commercial person to talk to me over the phone, and she said she will try to bring that issue back upstairs, and it didn't go anywhere at the end of the day. So there's a few solutions already that have been released on the issues, saying that you need to exclude both the Revit folders and the pyRevit folders for Sentinel-1 to be happy, which is obviously not perfect, but that's the only solution for people to get pyRevit plus Revit running. And if they have pyRevit and Revit and Sentinel-1 without that setup, well, they're screwed, basically. So that's something, I mean, I did my due diligence for that. I sent a few emails to Sentinel, to the support, to the commercial team. I called somebody in Czech Republic, representative, and all that. And end of the day, no solution from their side. So there's nothing we can do, I mean, extra from that. Unless they do the fix and they just wave or say something at the end. And that's pretty much the same thing with every firewall that is not properly set up or that just focus on some false positive that we have. Don't focus on that. And I don't have Sentinel-1, so I cannot try it. I mean, if there's anyone that has Sentinel-1 access plus an IT guy next to him and kind of is able to test it out, that would be the only case where we could figure out what's wrong and what can make it work. But right now I mean, I don't have access, so there's no way I can fix it.
I just saw that I have a Sentinel-1, but my colleagues didn't incur in any of the problems. So I have to check with them. Maybe
it's already, you already have the exclusion of Revit and pyRevit folders.
It could be. I got to check.
So I'll talk to you then.
Okay. So, okay, so
maybe I got a question for the first thing. The making the branches, that's okay, but I think the most work would be on the workflow, right? On the YAML workflow, you would have to adjust the naming of the branches and the process.
I think so, yeah. I'll look at that. I think I'm searching for like develop or something like that. There are two triggers. One is on the develop and one is PR
on the main. Yeah.
Yeah. I won't touch the main right now because we are not ready to release. All I'm going to do right now is to just make sure that there's a develop for. Basically I'm going to rename the current to develop for and then branch out for 5.
So you will point the workflow to the 4 first for now, and until we have something.
No, we'll have a situation that both develops will be built.
Yeah, okay.
With their own installers.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. I might actually turn off the installers for like 5 and stuff like that for us to kind of figure out how it works for now, but because some of those builds are going to probably not build right now.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, I'll take care of the first one for tomorrow. So Dasimir can get started on the new develop branch for pyRevit 5 if he wants to create the solutions for the new libraries, .NET Core. And I think we can switch to .NET 8, the latest .NET that Revit is also using. So we'll use that. And then let's focus on these two and purging of the old Iron Python engines. Like I would give these higher priority right now.
Is there anyone that wants to do this one?
And then
Purging the old Iron Python engines.
let's do the priority one, these stuff first, and then we'll get to the faster extension parsing and then rebuilding of the UI when we get closer to the release.
I can try to purge the engines.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Do we have? Are you guys comfortable with the communication method that you have right now? If you don't mind, Andrea, message me on Discord if you have any questions and stuff like that. I can show you how those folders and the DLLs are set up and how to rename the assemblies and whatnot if you needed to know anything about those kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Ishan, can you write
Yeah,
who
who's gonna take which one, actually? So that we get a plan with people next to it.
Do that.
Sanzo.
Get started on this. No longer can do this one after he's done with setting up the projects. And Andrea.
It's Sanzo, the last one.
Oh. Okay, let's do these. And then hopefully by next meeting, we'll have a little cleaner setup.
Is there anything? I mean, we are kind of reaching the end. Is there anything that someone wants to ask, talk about?
Yes, I have a proposition. And Andreas Draxler and me, we are part of BIM Alliance in Germany. And the next session of this group, let's say it's about pyRevit. So it would be really great, or it's a great opportunity to present pyRevit, to show it to a bunch of companies in Germany, and to get their interest and maybe also some support from them. Is there anyone willing to do that? And maybe, I don't know, Ethan, you did this once in Ogda. I don't know if you remember. You presented basically a live session where you started to code just one extension, very simple example, where you get parameter value and you write it back or something like this, but something which is talking to people in an office who do the daily job where, well, they do stupid click work, and you can do it automated by Revit. So if anyone is interested in that, I would be the person to contact, so I can talk to the organization and introduce someone to make it. I also asked to Eric. I don't know, he's quite shy, so let's see if we can do that.
Okay,
But,
when is that event?
I don't know exactly. The guy was he was ill last 2 weeks, so I just wrote him last week. I come back to you if I have any news on that, on
Okay.
when will be. So for you, it's always good in your morning is our afternoon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
way behind. Yeah.
Okay, so CET something like 5 o'clock PM would be something where you are quite comfortable. Otherwise, it's too early.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
I have a look and I'll discuss with him and I come back. But don't feel to be there's no duty on doing this. You have enough thing to do. So
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Thanks, Jacob. Yeah. That'd be nice.
I posted just a link. Yeah.
Yeah.
To-
If maybe if you can do it, Hassan, and someone else is willing to do it, that you could just post on the forum and propose that, Jacob, and that could be just one thing open so that people can show around what they're doing also as well at the same time.
yeah, I thought also because you wrote down about financement. When I had a look to what is going on in Blender BIM, they have this open collective financing solution. Seems to be quite interesting. Where if you type Blender BIM, or also you will get the way they organize themselves. Yeah, yes. So they get some money. As I understood, they have now engaged a programmer on it who does it full time. So it seems to be quite interesting as a solution for financement. I didn't dig in, but you have some things and how to say, they do some marketing with it. So if a company gives money inside here, well, they have their title, and you know that I don't know which architecture office is invoked in the development of the software. So it's a selling proposition or selling point for this company. It seems to be quite interesting.
Yeah, this is actually quite interesting. One of the biggest troubles that I have, like me and Jean-Marc talk about it, because I do have that Patreon account, and I kind of want to get it to a point that like this money is going either everybody that's contributing on Patreon will use this new platform, or all the money is I get about like $300 a month. That would be directed to something like this that we all can share that for the work that we have to do that's it's within work time or whatever that you want to charge for, stuff like that. So I'm totally okay switching to something like this. I know you guys are on the European side, so if one of you can take a look at this and make sure that it's all accessible to you,
It should be. It should be. By default, this one, I know it is.
I think it's in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
The foundation of this company.
One of the things I really liked when I was watching the guys at ifc.js, they did that bounty system inside GitHub, and with I think it's an implementation with Airtable or whatever, and they have a system where you can reply to that bounty and take it, and then you have a certain amount of fixed weeks to get things done. And then after that, you get a notification to someone that will control it. And then if it's okay, it's just populating the whole sending money and everything. It's happening at in the background. So they set that up and that worked. I've seen it last year mostly. I don't know if they're still using it that much because now they're kind of a company. But
yeah, it changed name.
Yeah, but that's something I think really would make sense
company.
because some of the tasks that we have, they're just sometimes it's not that they are too big, it's just that they take too much time for people to handle that. And some people would just like to have like make $100 to do one thing and that would be perfect.
So the Blender BIM, I'm assuming they have this project set up on Open Collective. and they have some like annual budget or something like that listed, and they get some contribution and stuff like that. The part that I don't know is that how do they share that internally?
Wouldn't know. But
Okay.
we can have a talk with Dion maybe, and maybe the guys from IFT.js. That wouldn't be an issue, and talk a bit about that to figure out. I mean, I can have that talk, and then I can tell you what's the ins and out on my side, because they are both on the European side, I think. So
Let's see who else is using this. This seems very interesting. They don't have any other bigger projects listed here, huh? That they're using this. Open Source Collective, Open Collective Foundation. Okay, yeah, let's look into this. I'm totally down to switch to something like this. I can tell every Patreon user that, hey, like this is a new system that we have set up if you want to transfer over to this one. And I have some of those funds saved up, so I can transfer that to the new account. And we just have to figure out how it's structured. And as far as like the bounties and stuff like that, our group is fairly small right now, so we can take care of that internally, and then we can set up something more complicated later.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay,
Cool.
let's do this.
That's a lot of things for once.
Does anybody want to look into this open collective thing?
I can have a look if you want.
Okay, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'll keep this open and I'll take a look at it tonight to see maybe I can start something, see how it works, like the account setup and stuff like that. I don't know if it would be better for a European to set this up or for an American to set this up. I don't know. I'll look into these.
Cool. So that's it for now.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific block date on next month that you cannot meet with us, or
No,
you being the central piece?
you guys are doing all the hard work these days. I'm pretty open except for like Tuesdays that I have a meeting. Most Mondays are fine. I do have these couple of fixed meetings that I do throughout the
But
week.
like
everything-
same a Monday in a month would be good, or
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense.
that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we can
So
keep
I'll
Mondays.
set it up. I'll set it up the same way, unless somebody else some better ideas, and we'll talk next month.
Awesome.
And other people without cameras, because I didn't see. If you want to invite other people to the meeting, feel free to do so. Right? It's like open from now on.
Yeah,
So
I
feel
think
free
we
to
had
share a
two
bit.
new ones today, Belsik and Vitaly M.
I will, Jean-Marc. I'm sorry for the very late join, but maybe you hear him in the background, but my son was very sick today, so I need to go to the doctor. So I'll watch the recap on the whole .NET situation, but there you go.
You'll get your answers, actually, when you watch the recording. You'll be happy. You'll get more than answers. You will get like a big plan.
Thank you very much.
Try to get some sleep. So let's say goodbye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
See you soon.
A nice one.
Ciao.
Bye. Thank you.